I have a really awesome blend of RPGs planned for release in the very near future, but here are the list rules. The games have to have a PC version, can have a demo out but can't be in early access, no MMORPGs, and there's been some form of public activity about the game's development during the first half of 2023. Zoria, Age of Shattering starts off the list because it's planned to be released on the 4th of October 2023. Zoria is a passion project that's been worked on for the past 7 years by a dedicated 3-person team who, after a successful Kickstarter and obtaining a publisher, managed to buckle down for the past year or so and work full-time on their project. After playing their first demo, I described Zoria Age of Shattering as an indie Dragon Age Origins, and while you shouldn't expect production value of the level many tens of millions of dollars can bring, from a visual standpoint, Zoria looks like it's punching way above its weight, and mechanics-wise promises to offer interesting turn-based combat, a detailed crafting system, some amount of base management, and most importantly, for many RPG players out there, character customization, Bob. I've been a follower of the game from day one and likewise a Kickstarter backer, so I'll do my best to cover the game as soon as it's released. Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes is a modern title planning to bring back the feel of old school JRPGs that's being worked on by two of the main designers of the iconic Suikoden series. The game promises a 6-character battle system making use of 2D sprites set against 3D backgrounds, but with a massive 100 playable characters to help you throughout the game, hence the 100 Heroes tag. These many characters will learn special AI abilities over time, which they will perform on their own in battle. This system will also link various characters' AI abilities together in order to create more powerful combos. The game will feature a tremendous amount of exploration as well as many base building and resource management layers. Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes is expected to be released sometime in 2023. Broken Roads is an isometric party-based RPG which takes place in a post-apocalyptic Australia. The game's main gameplay feature will be a moral compass mechanic, through which your character will gain access to traits and dialogue options relevant to their moral alignment, which in turn will be subject to change as a result of your various decisions, thus shifting your options as you explore the world and stories offered by the game. The Down Under setting makes this a very attractive suggestion since I do want to visit other fictional post-apocalyptic locations, not just the US. Broken Roads is set to release sometime in 2023. Dragon's Dogma 2 is going to release on PC at the same time as other platforms, and it is expected to bring back fans of the original as well as new people thanks to its introduction of a new beast-like playable race as well as new gameplay concepts like the pawns, which will be AI-controlled helper characters you can customize to aid you in your adventures and battles. The pawns are then available for other players to use during their playthroughs, thus giving a bit of a communal feel to what is a purely single-player experience. Otherwise, the sequel promises to be everything the original was and more, compounding the usual melee, ranged and magical vocations with varied terrain that will lend itself to a variety of ways of getting past enemies. There is no set release date for Dragon's Dogma 2 yet, however, due to the timeline of announcements, one could speculate we might be seeing it either late 2023 or sometime in 2024. SKALD Against the Black Priory is an old-school RPG harkening back to the Middle Ultimas and Gold Box titles that tries to marry 8-bit style graphics with modern narrative capabilities and set it in a dark, Lovecraftian-inspired fantasy world. The game has been in development for several years by now, being worked on by a solo dev with some contractor help here and there. I played its first demo and was really intrigued by its challenging and unforgiving nature, and in the meanwhile, the game has gone through many enhancements and changes and am thoroughly looking forward to its finished version. The game doesn't have a fixed release date yet, but it is expected to come towards the end of 2023 or start of 2024. Lords of the Fallen shares the same name with the game from 2014, but this new Lords of the Fallen is considered a sort of spiritual successor or reboot of that game. Surely this naming choice will lead to some confusion in the future, but that's neither here nor there. This upcoming Lords of the Fallen looks to be a Souls-like, and when it comes to Souls-likes, mechanically speaking they're more or less the same. It's usually down to how smooth the combat, dodging and parrying is, and how interesting the world is. It's one of those situations where, all things being equal, it's down to the execution of the component parts and how well they mesh together. Lords of the Fallen is scheduled for release on 13 October 2023. Call of Saregnar is yet another old-school callback and tribute, but this time to the likes of Betrayal at Krondor. A first-person, story-focused RPG, Call of Saregnar will feature a set party of characters, each of which has their own class and personality, as you start the game by going on a minor quest that quickly snowballs into events of intrigue and mysticism far outside the domain of your small-town protagonists. Saregnar aims to offer an immersive and engaging type of gameplay experience where paying attention to the text you encounter is paramount and where a lack of quest markers in an open world setting is a clear design decision. All the combat encounters will be hand-placed and combat itself will be turn-based on a hex grid and from a third-person isometric view, not a first-person one. But don't expect giant rats or money to burst out of walking skeletons. Saregnar is more down to earth, as it were, even for a fantasy setting. The game doesn't have a release date yet, and we're unlikely to see it done this year, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on. Monomyth aims to homage the first-person open dungeon world games from the past, like Ultima Underworld or Arx Fatalis. This is a fully modern 3D offering, however, which I have to say does not look half bad considering it's being made by a solo dev, but that notwithstanding, the game's mechanics are what matter the most. And in that respect, Monomyth promises secrets, traps, treasure and stealth, as well as emergent gameplay through an interactable environment and fun, immersion-enhancing features like baking bread and playing an instrument. The game is unlikely to be released this year, but might make it into early access towards the end of 2023 or the start of 2024. SacriFire will have us embark on an epic adventure that seamlessly blends charming 2D pixel art sprites with breathtaking 3D environments. But this isn't your ordinary turn-based JRPG inspired title. Oh no, it takes combat to a whole new level, featuring real-time movement, a diverse array of companions and weapons, body part targeting, and a combo system that's as flexible as your gaming skills. And those skills will be put to the test through the game's different combat styles, crafting system, puzzles, and mysterious dungeons. SacriFire is brought to you by the same team behind Regalia of Men and Monarchs, and while you may not be aware of that game, I actually covered it on my channel a while back. Unfortunately, those videos aren't public anymore, but take my word for it, that game was straight up dope, with quite funny dialogue and overall tongue-in-cheek writing. I don't think SacriFire is gonna follow the same direction, with its story and world seeming to blend elements of sci-fi with fantasy. The game doesn't have a set release date, but I am being told the devs are aiming for 2024, don't hold me to it. Islands of the Caliph is a first-person dungeon crawler action RPG set in a world inspired by Middle Eastern folklore and Islamic spiritual traditions. Inspired by old-school classics like Might and Magic and Questron, the pixel art offering will have us explore and fight our way on a square grid in an open world populated with mythical creatures and thematically appropriate weapons which feature distinct combat styles and abilities. Islands of the Caliph is set for release sometime in 2023. Project Witchstone makes some lofty promises, touting an interactive storytelling experience that will offer a living and reactive world where all your decisions cause the entire world dynamic to shift, offering you the ability of influencing the world's inhabitants and factions, and then dealing with the uniquely generated consequences of your actions. The game aims to offer a highly dynamic and fluid sort of role-playing experience, very much akin to that of a tabletop session, but I suggest we take all of these with a healthy dose of salt. The promises all sound a little bit too good to be completely true, so I would keep my expectations within the realm of more probable rather than what's potentially possible. The game doesn't have a set release date, and if it's going to offer anywhere close to the things it is promising, there might be several years till we see anything publicly playable, but nonetheless, it is worth keeping an eye on. The Thaumaturge will set us in a slightly fantastically altered version of 1905's Warsaw, where a culturally diverse population is living under the control of Imperial Russia, and where a certain number of people have the ability of seeing and controlling strange mystical beings called Salutors. These spirit-like entities can be used by these Thaumaturges to manipulate the temperaments and affinities of those around them, as well as in combat, but it seems that this capacity will come with some drawbacks as well. The visuals look very nice and dark and promise to offer a great and fairly historically accurate look back at a long-gone era of the early 20th century Poland. Otherwise, the game promises the staple RPG experience of character creation and branching storylines. The game doesn't have a set release date, but it's more than worth keeping an eye on if it sounds like something you'd be into. Prometheus Wept will have us venture into a near-future post-apocalyptic dystopia following several generations of chaos after a computer virus decimated the digital technological infrastructure that had become an integral part of daily life, much more so than it is today. You and your party will engage in turn-based tactical combat both in meat and cyberspace in a way similar to the Shadowrun universe. The game promises to feature deep character customization, a meaningful choice system, as well as a varied crafting system. However, we have to keep in mind the game is being worked on by a solo dev, so progress might be slow. That said, the dev does keep a pretty consistent devlog on YouTube and hopes to release in early access in 2024. Urban Strife is a turn-based strategy survival RPG set during a zombie apocalypse. The devs have been working on a super dynamic world whose level design focuses on tactical flexibility, allowing for things like flanking, interrupting enemy fire, entering buildings through windows, as well as rooftop combat. You will be fighting both zombies as well as other human factions, using ballistically simulated guns and ammo, as well as fortifying and outfitting your base and interacting with crafting, scrounging, and an unexpected amount of still existing economy. Besides all of these and much more, the other major selling point of the game is the high degree of modding the developers are promising to offer starting from the day the game releases. And while modding might appeal only to a small fraction of the audience, it's what can ensure the survival of a game long after its usual viability window closes. Urban Strife has been on my radar for several years by now, and every year it seems just a bit closer to release. Will it happen this year? Unknown, but hoped for. Cybernight's Flashpoint reminds me of the Shadowrun series, which I am a big fan of, and just like those games, it aims to immerse players in a dystopian cyberpunk future where they assemble a team of underground mercenaries and embark on daring heist missions. While it lacks magical elements, Flashpoint compensates with extensive customization features, allowing players to tailor their characters and also delves into base building. Moreover, the game places great emphasis on storytelling and character development, ensuring that players' choices have a significant impact on the game's narrative trajectory. Cybernight's Flashpoint is set for release into early access sometime in Q3 of 2023. Ludus Mortis is a callback to classic first-person dungeon crawlers of the 80s and 90s, and as such, it's a square grid based blobber, but unlike the classics, this one is set in a dark fantasy version of the Roman Empire, where the Senate dabbled into some necromancy shenanigans and introduced the undead and demons into our world. You'll be leading a party of gladiators into dungeons and catacombs to fight these undead enemies and demons. You'll have 14 classes to choose from, as well as a base building and management layer via your Ludus or Gladiator School, whose facilities you can improve, where you can craft new equipment and get new gladiators. Made by the same studio that made Inferno Beyond the Seventh Circle, which I covered on my channel, check the description for a link to that video. Ludus Mortis is set to release during the second half of 2023. Banishers, Ghosts of New Eden is set at the end of the 17th century in the wilds of North America, and will have you play as both a living character, Red McWraith, and their ghost partner, Antea Duarte, as they continue their job of banishing still lingering spirits from the realm of the living and finding a solution to Antea's ghost's presence. The game is a story-driven action-adventure RPG where you'll unlock new gear and abilities and make all manner of decisions that end up affecting the story later on. Banishers, Ghosts of New Eden is set to release sometime in 2023. Sovereign Syndicate promises to be a steampunk set cRPG during which you'll be able to play as 3 different characters, each living their own branching storyline and a conflict resolution system mainly centered around using skills and abilities not related to combat. Your choices in the game will decide which of your abilities improve, and the world will react to your decisions, dialogue choices, and appearance. Sovereign Syndicate is set to release sometime during the first half of 2024. Repo Man seems to be a deeply immersing and interesting first-person RPG where you'll be playing as a debt collector, investigating the mystery of your father's debt that was passed down to you following his death. You'll be doing this in a weird world of Art Nouveau aesthetics combined with neon lights and digital technology. A world in which magic once existed, but is now afflicted with an infectious fatal depression disease whose only cure is money and a dolphin's heart. You'll get to choose the type of debt collector you are through your interactions with those whose debts you're collecting, as well as how you interact with every other NPC of import in the game. Persuasion, negotiation, and deceit will all play a big role in how and where your story goes. Repo Man is set to release sometime in 2023. Flintlock, The Siege of Dawn is another action RPG with heavy Souls-like influences in which you have to fight ancient deities who have unleashed hordes of undead upon the land. You'll take control of Norvanek, a soldier in a coalition army, and have a magical ally called Enki, with whom you'll engage in intense combat encounters where you'll blend axe fighting, gunplay, and spellcasting. Much like was the case with Lords of the Fallen, it's a waiting game to see which Souls-like title will appeal to which potential audience. Flintlock, The Siege of Dawn is scheduled for release sometime in 2024, so they'll have some extra time to assess where they stand compared to similar titles. Wandering Sword will have us embark on a journey through ancient China, as a young swordsman escaping pursuers and exploring large towns, caves, lairs, and forts along the way. The game is a Chinese take on JRPGs, blending beautiful pixel art with 3D environments and offering a curious twist when it comes to combat, allowing us to choose between turn-based and real-time combat, which will be really cool if the entire game systems were built upon this idea as its foundation, but I would be fairly skeptical about that and wait to see how it works. My bet is one of the combat systems will be superior. Otherwise, the game will offer multiple endings and plenty of flexibility in terms of party makeup, as well as the development of your protagonist's skills. Wandering Sword is scheduled for release in Q3 of 2023. Legends of Amberland 2: The Songs of Trees is a first-person dungeon crawler made as a tribute to and resembles the pixel art cRPGs of the 90s. A square grid party-based game with super fast-paced turn-based combat where the focus is more on world and dungeon exploration rather than some giant overarching plot. Both main and side quests exist of course, but not as involved as the classic game's homage. Thanks to modern capabilities and several decades of game design in the meanwhile, the Legends of Amberland developer focused on creating a much more streamlined experience both for the modern gamer as well as those who might not have as much time to game as they did back in the 90s. I covered the first Legends of Amberland back in 2019 and it was quite a fun and light gameplay experience, so make sure to check out that video in the description if you want more details as to what to expect from the sequel. Legends of Amberland 2: The Songs of Trees will bring several improvements and enhancements to many of the features of the first and is scheduled for release sometime in 2023. Neo Berlin 2087 is a project that aims to offer quite the particular RPG experience from either a third or first person perspective, where you'll play the role of a police detective in the dystopian and cyber enhanced Neo Berlin. A Berlin that has built a wall around itself to keep the surrounding wasteland out. A wasteland populated now only by outcasts and malfunctioning machines. The gameplay footage we have for the moment looks quite stunning, especially considering this is an indie project. This means, however, the title is indeed unlikely to release anytime soon. Skullstone is an ancient structure that recently showed up under mysterious circumstances, and evil creatures have started appearing, killing the brave and kidnapping the old and the young. Your job will be to lead a party of characters and explore the many levels of this structure, looking for the source or reason for its appearance. The game is a first-person dungeon crawler set on a square grid and real-time, looking to be very similar to Legends of Grimrock. You'll be able to choose from 20 different characters with their own skills and abilities, ranging from melee warriors to archers and spellcasters. Skullstone does not have a release date yet. Which one of these sound like titles you'd like to play when they release? Let me know in the comments. I've been Stephen Answers. I have a Patreon. You might want to check out the video linked on the screen if you enjoyed this one. Thank you for watching and have a great rest of your day.